What's up, guys? Dylan here. We're going to be talking about this article today about Joe Rogan, post Malone slamming the U.S. government and CBDCs. We're talking about Bitcoin. We're going to talk about the fiat, slavery, and all that good stuff. So like, comment, share, subscribe, and let's get into this video. This made headlines recently because Bitcoiners love to hop on any sort of major media conversation about Bitcoin or anti-CBDC, and it's reasonable, right? It's reasonable because they want to get Bitcoin to have traction, and I want Bitcoin to have traction, and I want Bitcoin to grow, and I want Bitcoin awareness. And so when a big time public figure talks about it, you jump on that. You know, they say no press is bad press, right? All press is good press, because it brings attention to it. People are getting educated. Joe Rogan has probably the biggest podcast platform in the world. Post Malone is a superstar, tons of fans. And so and of course, he's got lots of young fans as well. So when these people are speaking out about the money and the problems with the money, that is awesome for Bitcoiners to hear and see. And it's great it's great. It's just great to see. Let's go and scroll down and look at this article. It's on Zero Head, and you can see I have been looking at mountain bikes with my targeted ads there. If you have a favorite mountain bike, put it in the comments below. But I think I might not buy one and get some more Bitcoin instead. We'll see. Anyways, it says podcaster commenter Joe Rogan has blasted the idea of United States central bank digital currency, describing the digital dollar as game over scenario for American citizens. Here's what he says, right? That it's game over. They decide somehow or another that you need some social credit score system, and that's for the benefit of society, and they outline that. They can track your behavior and your tweets and all your things. They decided that you blanked up, and the rules are the rules, he said. I would say the word. I don't know if I actually can. I don't know what YouTube's rules are on that kind of stuff. But anyways, Malone, it says Malone also mentioned his concerns with the banking system in the United States, knowing that the FDIC insurance only covers bank account values up to $250,000. It does, and it's good for you to know. So if you have more of that in a bank, you should maybe look into that, especially with all the bank failures that we've had this past year. A lot of us in the Bitcoin community think that there's more bank failures to come, unfortunately, but it just is what it is. And it says the pair also discussed the controversial decision by Canadian government to freeze the bank accounts associated with the Freedom Convoy. This is all stuff that I've talked about. So this is all things that I've mentioned before. I've mentioned on the Economic Prepper show about CBDCs are a problem. They're a problem because if you digitize the money and you allow systems to be built, control mechanisms to be built in the money, that gives whoever is issuing or in control of the money even more power than they have already. And the United States already has a immense amount of power because they're the ones that issue the currency. We became the global leaders basically with the big stick when we showed that we have these massive bombs and we will use them if necessary. Right? We basically declared that we are the strongest, most powerful entity and that you have to follow our rules. Right? Play nice or else. And because of that, there are some benefits to that. It does create certain levels of stability, but over time, it leads to exploitation. And one of the ways they've exploited us is through the fiat system. I've talked about this before. It's just like the dollar, the invention of the dollar, the creation of the fiat dollar, or any fiat currency or something like that is one of the most brilliant inventions, one of the most brilliant products out there. And people might hate on me at face value when they hear that because it's like, oh my gosh, you're praising the dollar. The dollar is like all over the world. Everyone uses the dollar. Everyone wants the dollar. This is one of the most amazing products ever created. It's done incredible things, but it's also done terrible things and enabled terrible things. And one of those things, like just fundamentally, the creation of the dollar and the creation of a currency that you can use for trade around the world easily, like the creation of money, if you go back that far, like that was a brilliant invention. But then the creation of this currency and the dollar specifically, allowing someone to trade land that they have that they can't really subdivide, but they can trade that for dollars. Now they have an equivalent value of dollars instead of that land. And so they can go and buy other goods and services or reinvest it a lot more easily and fluidly than they can with that land. That's brilliant. But the big problem, right? And that's the big trick. The big trick is that they've tricked people to trade their real asset, that land, for basically a Trojan horse. There's a back door built into the dollar, and that back door is that the government can print more, okay? So they can control the supply of that money. They can control that. And because they can control that, they can inflate away the value of your purchasing power, basically. So they make it require more dollars to purchase the same amount of things. So your purchasing power over time gets reduced when you have the dollar. So that's the trick. That is the trick that they use. It's a brilliant trick, but it's a trick nonetheless, and it's a way that enslaves the populations, the people, to become dependent. Because in order to, it's a real simple concept to be like, you work, you get paid. Like you do the X, you get Y. Okay, really simple thing. And with money, it's like, well, you need Y, you need money instead of working at land because you need to eat food. So you need the money to buy the food, buy the different things to trade those goods and services. So you're gonna desire that over working, and then you get one thousandth of an acre, like for every week you work. That sounds good in theory, but if you don't have money to buy food, you're not going to make it very long, and then you're gonna have to start selling off that land. It just creates an additional process. So making people work for the dollar, having to pay their expenses, their goods and services all for the dollar, it works very well. It's efficient, but it allows them to exploit you by printing more of it and you not getting the benefits of that. And them and whoever prints it, they get to basically control who gets the benefits. They also, since they're in charge of it, they can print that money and buy assets. They can buy real assets from real people. Okay. And so then they're acquiring the assets. They're giving you the money that's losing value and will lose value over time. So they hold the power, you lose power. So it's just that's the dynamic that's set up with the dollar. And that dynamic is going to be expanded and upon with CBDCs, because it's the same type of system, only they can hyper focus that dilution. They can basically say, I mean, here's an example. I'm not saying this will happen. I'm just saying this could happen. Right? This could be built into the code. They could basically say, in order to use this CBDC, right, with a social credit score or whatnot, your time, your new banking apps, your identity, and for your identity, they might know, hey, what color you are, what gender you are, how old you are, and maybe for certain like months that celebrate certain things or attributes about people, hey, look, if you're this group of people, that you get a boost on whenever you spend money at these participating retailers, okay, or participating places. So your dollar now has $1.10 worth of purchasing power. That can be done really easily, right? Or they could say, hey, look, like, hey, if you're in this group, you make more money than this other group. Your dollar actually has less purchasing power. So we're going to actually say for every dollar you have, you only have 90 cents of purchasing power. And they can fine tune and tweak these things. So what you have in your wallet, even if you take two people and let's say they both have 100 CBDC dollars in their wallet, they go to the same place, the same grocery store, the same retailer. And because of these certain like micro controls that can be implemented with this CBDC system, they would end up not being able to purchase the same amount of goods or services. That's a problem. You could be locked out from purchasing certain things. Say like someone filed a complaint against you, right? And we live in a country where there should be due process, so no one should be, you're innocent until proven guilty. And so that's a really important concept. But someone could file a complaint against you, and then they could just snap their fingers, push a button, and poof, you can't use your funds, or your funds are reduced by half, or you can only access a certain amount of your funds. Or maybe people always talk about the problem with CBDCs and these micro controls and the climate crisis. They can be like, oh, like they can start restricting how much of certain types of foods or like services relate that have an impact on the climate. If they say they have an impact on the climate, how much of this stuff you can buy? And that becomes a problem. And people like to make a joke. It's like, oh, you've went over your weekly red meat quota, so now you can't use your money to buy it. And again, that creates a problem. That creates a real issue. That type of stuff is very, very dangerous if you want to live in a free world. If you want to live and have your own freedom and be able to buy and do what you want with your money, with your time, right? Very, very important that this type of system doesn't get a foothold, that you push back against this type of thing, what this type of system is capable of. And it's great to see guys like Post Malone, Joe Rogan talk about this stuff. It's just really good. Let's go on down. Let's look more at the article. Let's see here. Echo similar sentiments for avid supporters of decentralized cryptocurrencies. So I'm talking about Bitcoin. They mentioned decentralized cryptocurrencies. I think one key thing is that not all cryptos are the same. I am pro Bitcoin. I only speak publicly about Bitcoin. The other things, highly speculative, mostly gambling, most scams. You're probably better off focusing your time and attention on real things versus trying to get rich off these get rich quick pump and dump schemes. So even this article, they don't say avid supporters of Bitcoin. Bitcoiners are very much against CBDCs. We call CBDCs surveillance disguised as money, right? They are a problem. And so it's amazing to see Joe Rogan and Post Malone talk about this and highlight this, because I think more and more people need to be aware of the dangers of it. And the final thing before I conclude this video is they're gonna make CBDCs sound super sexy. They're gonna make them sound super amazing. They're gonna make them sound like, and they're gonna be some benefits, right? We're talking about these guys are they're expert marketers. It, like just think about this. With it's the analogy. It's the carrot or the stick. You can trap more flies with honey than vinegar, or you catch more flies with honey and vinegar, or whatnot. The saying is, and if they're putting together a plan to implement more control over population, over people, wouldn't it be work better if you like instead of trying to just use force and threats and fear and violence, that stuff has a time and place. But I think we found out it works a lot better to just make a really good product that gives you an asymmetric advantage. Like that seems to be the thing that we've stumbled upon in modern times. Before it was fear and all that kind of stuff, seemingly, but now it's like just make a really good product that you have control over, and you can determine who gets to participate and who doesn't get to participate. You can gatekeep. And so with these CBDCs, they're gonna do stuff like, hey, when you convert $100 of your normal fiat currency to our banking app, our CBDC banking app, it's gonna be worth 150. Or they're gonna do stuff like that. They're gonna do free airdrops, or they're gonna do all sorts of things. Or certain retailers that have bought in, that have implemented these systems, that have pioneered both CBDC systems on the front end and the back end. If you shop there, you get your purchasing power is greater. Like they're gonna do all sorts of stuff like that to implement CBDCs. They're gonna do things like, they're gonna make things sound like social causes that and then entice people. They're gonna target marginalized groups. They're gonna target people that need the money. They're gonna target all these people, and they're gonna do things to make their lives easier at first. But as Joe Brown says, handouts lead to handcuffs, and there's going to be a lot of handouts. So you got to look at, there are strings attached to these handouts, right? You are selling something, you're giving something up when you go down that route. And so these CBDCs, while if they come to fruition and they get implemented, it's going to be hard to avoid them completely. I think it's more important to know what they are, how they work, and what you can do about them, and alternate systems, alternative monies that you can put your money into. So things like Bitcoin, right? Things like Bitcoin that is apolitical, that isn't controlled by one entity, where they can't just inflate it away from you. Those are going to be more and more important to know about, and in my personal opinion, not financial advice, to hold, so that you can secure and you custody of those things, so you have access to purchasing power that no one can take away from you. So, anyways, great to see Joe Rogan. Great to see Post Malone talking about the dangers of CBDCs, talking about Bitcoin and its benefits and the benefits of decentralization, talking about the overreach of governments that want to put more control on the population. I think that's fantastic. So definitely go check this out, check out the clips, check out the article, and let me know what you think about this in the comments below, and I will catch you in the next video. Peace.